My name is Dinos Mylonas. I'm the coordinator of the project, and on behalf of the consortium and the dissemination leader, Dr. Rocío Robles, I'd like to invite you in this final coordination dissemination meeting. We're really happy to have reached this end, and I think we have achieved almost all that we hoped for and we strive for. We're really happy today to have people from the European Commission, people from DGRTD, and our scientific officer, Marta Iglesias. Thank you very much for joining us. Also people from DG Mare, people from DG Environment, from the Aquaculture Advisory Council, from the European Aquaculture Society, from EATIP later on in the afternoon. FEAP unfortunately had to cancel last minute. So we tried to bring people here, stakeholders that are more in the policy of the issues that are relevant to our field. As you will hear later on this afternoon from our dissemination leader, we have already done a lot of dissemination this year for the producers, feed companies, processors. So we did not invite this type of people here. We wanted to have more of the policy people here. So the agenda today, you have it printed at the back of your name badge. So we'll go a little bit more into what we have for the agenda. What I would like to do now is to introduce the project to the people, our guests, who are not as well aware as the partners here. So the project is called DIVERSIFY. It is a large project with 37 partners. It's one of the last projects of FP7. It was a 5-year project, started in December 2013, and it's concluded at the end of this month, 5 years. It had a total budget of 11.8 million, and I think it's probably the largest aquaculture-related project funded up to that date. I don't know if there are bigger projects now. As you see, it has a lot of partners from throughout the European Union, although the emphasis was more in the Mediterranean, and you will see from the partnership and the species. We had, of course, a large number of research and academic institutions, but we also had a lot of SMEs and companies. It was, in fact, in our contractual agreement that 15% of the budget would be allocated to the commercial sector. We also had professional associations to help us with the rapid dissemination of our results to the stakeholders, and we had also one NGO, which, by the way, I would like to thank. This is the European Food Information Council, EUFIC, which is headquartered here in Brussels, and would like to thank them also for the hosting of today's meeting. Thank you very much, Carlos, for your work. So the objective of this project was, of course, to enhance the European aquaculture production through species diversifications. Obviously, there's a lot of ways to enhance the industry. One of the potential ways that we believe useful is the diversification of species. Now, the problem that has been identified many years ago, and I assume in preparation for this call that came from the European Union, was that the production of, especially marine Mediterranean aquaculture production, was limited to small-sized fish, sea bass, sea bream, turbot, sole, which were the species that were well known in the market and they had the good value in the market. Unfortunately, these small plate-sized fish are difficult to prepare. They have eyes, they have scales, they have guts, they have bones. So you know very well that more and more modern consumers, they prefer easier preparations, easy to prepare items, and to make these preparations, you need to have a large-bodied animal to be able to cut it and process it into fillets, steaks, ready to cook. Of course, this fish can be grown a little bit bigger, but it's not efficient to try to grow a sea bream to 1 kilo. It takes 4 years to do that. It's not efficient. So the underlying theme of the proposal was the diversification into large and fast-growing fish, to be able to get large-bodied animals that can be processed into different value-added products. So we identified, we did a survey in the process, in the time of preparing for the proposal, consulted with a lot of scientists, with farms, with people that we knew in the industry about what would be good species to diversify into. And the ones that we identified was meager, which was not a new species, but what we call emerging. That is, it was a species that was produced by the farm industry, but not to a great extent, and it had some bottlenecks to be solved. Also, Atlantic halibut, it's one of the species for the northern areas. It was a species that has been farmed for many, many, many years, but that got stuck into a certain level of production because of some important biological bottlenecks. We also had two very new species, the greater amberjack and the wreckfish, which were not really produced commercially until that time. And in addition to these four species, to make the project more EU relevant, we included pike perch, a freshwater fish, for the diversification of the freshwater aquaculture, especially the emerging recirculation aquaculture industry. And we added also this very unique species, this gray mullet, which is a species that has been farmed for millennia, but not in an industrial method, in an extensive method. And the uniqueness of this species was that it's an omnivorous fish that does not require high levels of animal protein or fish protein. So it's more sustainable in the sense that it doesn't require as much fish meal and fish oil, which is, of course, a limiting resource. And also, it produces a secondary product, which is botarga or karasumi, the egg roll, which is a very high-valued product. So these are the 6 species that were included in the project. And we didn't want to do a life cycle research on all these species. So we identified the bottlenecks that each of these species had and were the most important in either advancing its production or enabling its production, if we're talking about a new species. So, for example, in meager, we didn't do work on really developing broodstock or reproduction technologies, because reproduction is controlled in this species, but we wanted to look into the genetic variation of the species in order to enable the development of genetic breeding programs. We looked into nutrition and health, because this was one of the items that we knew, or we heard from the industry that there were trouble with. In greater amberjack, of course, we needed to study reproduction, because there was no production of amberjack, large-scale production. In wreckfish, broodstock availability was one of the bottlenecks, and reproduction, of course, and juvenile production. So we didn't go into more than juvenile production in our plan, because we didn't know if we're going to ever make it into reproduction. So in any case, we identified the most relevant and most important bottlenecks. And we started working on these biological aspects. In addition to the biological aspects, a big part of the project, again by contractual agreement, was socioeconomics. We were asked to do a lot of socioeconomics work in this project. So we looked into the perception of aquaculture products in the European Union. We looked into market demand and buyer preferences. We looked into new product development, because we were going to produce new fish with the idea of being able to come up with new products, value-added products. So we did develop new products, and we did evaluate them in the market, and we did look into market development. So what happened after 5 years? We believe that we have accumulated and acquired important knowledge and developed important rearing protocols, methods for all species, all 6 species, to different extent, depending on where was the starting point. We have developed new products and evaluated them. We have looked into consumer behavior in the major EU markets. We have developed business models for the selected species. So we think that we have achieved almost all that we have promised. And this is what you're going to see in the next hours. Each species leader will give a presentation for all the work that has been done in the specific in the species, and just to highlight some of the things we consider very important. In terms of wreckfish, we have studied for the first time its reproduction in captivity, and we have described its reproductive cycle in captivity, and demonstrated that the fish do mature in captivity, because for those that you don't know, this is a species that lives in very great depths, okay, below 600 meters, and it has never been studied before, either in nature, so it was a very difficult conceptually species to work with. We have developed methods for inducing spawning, but we also achieved spontaneous spawning, which is very important if you want to have a sustainable industry. And finally, after 5 years of work, we have succeeded in the development of some very cute-looking juveniles. In gray mullet, we again worked on the reproduction, because this species has another problem in reproduction, that it doesn't develop, it doesn't undergo gametogenesis even. It's not that it doesn't release the eggs, it doesn't undergo gametogenesis in captivity. So we have developed methods to enhance gametogenesis and also to induce spawning, and we succeeded, our partners in Israel, to produce large numbers of high quality eggs. And that led to the production of a large number of juveniles for grow-out. Of course, you will see from the results that we still have some way to go to reach commercial production with the industry standards, but that's for the next project. In the area, in Greater Amberjack, which we consider one of the biggest success of the project, we have developed broodstock management and spawning induction methods for this species in the Mediterranean as well as the Atlantic. We have developed larval rearing methods and produced hundreds of thousands of juveniles, and we have done commercial grow-out in cages, and for the first time we start selling fish. I mean, the industry that is participating in our consortium, but also others that we provided juveniles, have started producing, and now they're selling fish to the market. And we have developed also a health management manual. Of course, new problems arise when you solve the old ones, and we will hear about that from the species leader, Dr. Nikos Papandroulakis. I'm not going to go into everything, just I wanted to highlight a few things just to give you a taste of what's going to follow. From the beginning, we were asked, and we believed in dissemination. We were asked by the EU officer to have a very strong dissemination strategy, and we did. We developed what we think a very useful and very easy to navigate website, where you can find information both on species and on research area, reproduction, grow-out, nutrition, and so on. And we have tried from the beginning to be very, very visible in the internet and in all aquaculture meetings. Thankfully, through the support of the European Aquaculture Society, we have produced popularized articles for our work once or twice a year, and we have put everything together into a publication that you have in front of you today, and we're very, very thankful for the support of the European Aquaculture Society. Thank you, Alistair. And as I said, this year we have started with the dissemination to the farmers, to the stakeholders, and we have carried out 6 workshops, one for each species in different countries. And you will hear more about it from our dissemination leader. This went very, very well, and we have good feedback from the farms. And we have a small 3-minute video that I would like to close my presentation with. This is a small video that we developed, the dissemination leader, just to summarize what is this project about.
European aquaculture is lacking behind the growing demand for aquatic products. It supplies hardly 10% of the total EU seafood consumption. DIVERSIFY wants to change that. DIVERSIFY is an EU-funded project including 37 partners distributed all over Europe. Its aim is to expand the European aquaculture industry by revolutionising scientific techniques and methodology that will optimise the rearing and production of new or emerging finfish species, and by establishing the marketing techniques to attract consumers. Based on their biological and economic potential, DIVERSIFY has selected 6 species originating from a wide range of climatic and geographic regions within Europe. Meager, Greater Amberjack, Atlantic Halibut, Grey Mullet, Pike Perch and Wreckfish. DIVERSIFY has successfully resolved some of the production bottlenecks of these species, such as reproduction control of grey mullet, greater amberjack, Atlantic halibut and wreckfish, larval rearing methods for greater amberjack and grey mullet, optimization of recirculation aquaculture system rearing of pike perch, feeding methods based on the behaviour of meager during grow-out, and identification of the major pathogens of greater amberjack and meager in culture. All 6 species have a large size and fast growth rate, enabling the production of a variety of consumer-driven aquatic product ideas that have already been selected and evaluated by consumers in 5 different countries. The culture, processing and marketing methods developed by DIVERSIFY will increase the value of European aquaculture products. It will contribute to the expansion of our aquaculture industry and position it as a safe, healthy and sustainable source of aquatic products that can fulfill any market demand. DIVERSIFY, new species for EU aquaculture. Want to find out more? Go to diversifyfish.eu.
Okay, so this is our little video. So let's move to our today's agenda. As I said, what will follow is a presentation from each of our species leaders on the objectives that we had and on the work that we did and on the success or on the achievements that we have. Then we're going to look into our socioeconomics work, and we have 2 presentations from our socioeconomics team on the perspectives of the diversified species and the European aquaculture market. We also look into technical assessment of the diversified species and new product development. Then we're going to have a fish health presentation on the 2 major species that we worked on. And then Rocío Robles will give us an idea of the dissemination activities that we have done. In the last half hour, I'm going to give you what we think are the next bottlenecks as identified by the species leaders. What are the next bottlenecks that we need to overcome in these 6 species in a way to open a discussion both among ourselves, but also would like to hear from some of the people here based on what they will hear, what they would think. They're interested in this field. You think that there's a potential for improvement, there's a need for continuation and things like that. So it will be kind of a discussion on what our ideas are for the future. Okay, and without due delay, we're a bit early and we can start with our presentation. Just some logistical issues. We're going to have a coffee break at 11 for half an hour. We'll try to finish a little bit earlier because there's another EU project having a meeting next door, and they have their coffee break at 11:15. So we'll try to beat them to the coffee break. We'll try to finish 10 minutes earlier so we can have all the coffee and cookies. And then at 1 o'clock we have 1.5 hour lunch break, which will be downstairs, I believe. This is courtesy of the project. And we will get to try one of our species. We were trying to get more of our species to try, but as I often say, it's much easier to grow fish than to sell fish. And it was so difficult to get the arrangements, the logistics for bringing the fish to this hotel. They seem to be very, very difficult in their procurements. In any case, we succeeded to get at least halibut, and this is courtesy of Mr. Magnus Skretting, the owner of Sterling White Halibut, which has been our partner. And I don't know what recipes we will have, but the company has a staff chef who develops recipes and goes around the world and promotes the fish, something that I believe we should be doing for all our fish. And Chef Frode has sent us instructions on how to prepare and some ideas of how to prepare. So we'll see what the chef of the hotel has prepared for us today.